Hey guys, good afternoon po. So, why don't we start? Okay lang po ba? And then pa-chat na lang po dito or pa-unmute yourself po once na may magjo-join po tayong kaklase na hindi po gumamit ng UB nila. Okay? Okay. So, I'll be sharing my screen, and for today we have this agenda, continuation of what we've discussed from the previous weeks, and then second is checking your assignments. So I think we'll start with the second agenda, which is checking. So I'll be picking a few here. So this is related to homework number 3. Okay, so check natin. For the homework number 3, so hindi ko pa po ito nag-gradean, hindi ko pa na-check. First time ko makita for today. So let's just evaluate kung ano ba yung ginawa niya. Guys, pakinig ako. Sorry.
Yes po, sir. Naririnig.
Okay. Okay, seems like may problem ako sa connection. But yep, so let's take a look on other folks here. Hopefully I can download it. Yeah, so it takes some time to download the data. Okay. So previously we talked about product design. Okay, and also kinover din natin yung a few of process design. So ito nga po. So next time po, pa-label na lang po yung mga sheet number corresponding sa kung ano po yung tawag sa kanila. So binigay naman natin last time yung video Like for example, ito incomplete pa rin po, wala pa rin mga labels. Okay, so ayan, hindi pa rin to ayos. So this is similar to what was submitted last week. So kay Sir Carl yun. Okay, so this one looks better. So this is their product, expandable. So we have the group members here, good. Yeah, very good as well on the exploded part photograph. So they don't have yet the pub, what else, this manufactured product or finished product. Hindi pa po siguro tapos. So for the meantime, ito po muna yung ating extruded part photogram, and this is similar to the extruded assembly drawing. Okay, so looking good po so far. Yes, and then we have here the components drawing for each component. Yes po, pero mas maganda sana kung may dimension. Okay, so mas maganda kung may dimension para malinaw na malinaw anong measurement ng kada pyesa, kada component. Okay? So, but this one looks better. Ayan, identified na or clearly labeled yung kada spreadsheet. So, again, we'll be adding more tabs here as we proceed dun sa ating lecture. Okay. So, great. So, this is a better view. But again, asking to make it more detailed. Kaya naman, di ba? So, ayan, kung ano yung product 0 or part number 0. So, hindi ko pa makita dito. But nevertheless. Okay. Ayan, W001 ang 0. So, this one. Yep. So, palagay na lang po ng measurement next time. Okay, but again, that's not too critical. Pero, way to improve yung anyong work. Okay. So, good. So, start na tayo. So, last time, guys. By the way, hold on. I think I have to check one more. That is related to the next assignment, which is homework 4. So, not sure if I provided this to you. Okay. But, yeah, this is for your homework 4. So, last time we talked about bill of materials, how to present it, may it be in tree diagram or just in a table. And then, kung kayang lagyan ng cost data, better. And identified if that component is purchased or not. So, ibig sabihin, itong component na present nyo dito, must be in that bill of material. Ano, makikita natin if it is a sub-assembly or assembly. Ayan. And then for the rest, for the B, C, and D items, uh, we'll be talking on this bullet points 3. Okay. So, once again, last time po, kinover natin yung process design. Ano? So, ayan, how to identify the required processes, identifying if that component that you've listed dun sa ating parts list ay binili ba natin or ginawa or manufacture natin. So if this can take in a form of parts list similar to this one. So you have this product and then yung list, yung mga part numbers, ayan, and then their description, then drawing number. So for the drawing number, you may use this one. So kung kaya nating lagyan siya ng sa mas maayos na format, like, hold on, ayos. Okay. Ayan, para lang may pangalan kumbaga, yung bawat drawing. We can label it as drawing 001. Halimbawa, ayan. So again, that drawing 001 can be referenced on this drawing. Okay, and then quantity, like for their side, so 2. Dalawang W001. Okay? So ayan, and then what kind of material? So for them, wooden. And then for the size, yan, for the size, yung dimension na lamang nito. Okay? Ng kada isang parte. And also that decision of whether you are to buy it or to make it. Okay? So ibig sabihin, lahat ng component parts ay nakalagay dito sa parts list. Okay, so also we covered last time about bill of materials. So it's almost the same as parts list. Ang difference lang nito ay yun nga, may labels. Ano kagaya nito, your final product will be at the level 0 and then level 1 for the assembly and then other component parts and then what forms that or how to build that assembly. So that's your level 1, level 2, and then so on and so forth. Okay, so kumbaga may tinatawag tayo ditong product hierarchies. Ayan, hierarchy. Okay. Now, so for today, tuloy natin. So in selecting the required processes, once a determination has been made concerning the products to be made in-house, and so decisions are needed to how to make it. Decisions or decisions are needed, or we can mention it as are needed to know how to produce that product, produce or make the product, or let's say component slash product. Okay, so we're following typically these steps. First one is identified natin ano yung mga elemental operations. Elemental operations which are kada isa na operations. Halimbawa, paano natin ipoproduce yung part na to? Okay. So halimbawa, kukuha ako ng plywood. Ikakat ko yung plywood. So those two are processes. Or ulit, ikakat ko or bibili ako ng plywood, i-measure ko yung plywood, ikakat ko yung plywood, and then I have this part number W001. And then, yung mga process na yun, yung tatlong process na yun, ay yun po yung mga elemental operations. Again, elemental meaning every component. And then you could also identify ano yung mga alternative processes for each operations. For example, instead of buying or instead of getting a plywood, another option is to make use of a pre-cut. Kumbaga, pre-cut plywood. Ayan. So, ibig sabihin, hindi na kailangan i-measure. Bibili ka na ng pre-cut plywood and then konting smoothening, kumbaga. Yun. So, yung mga alternative processes. And then you could also know how to or evaluate those alternative processes is if better ba siya other than your initial process. And then you standardize it, evaluate those alternative processes, and then select the processes. So, kayo as facilities planner will not perform process selection. So, ito po, guys, yung mga facilities planner, hindi po sila yung in charge sa process selection. Kumbaga, may dadatnan na kayong mga processes. And i-fit nyo na lamang yung facility dun sa mga existing processes. Okay? So, hindi po kayo magpe-perform ng process selection. But for the meantime, since nga po, gagawin natin sa lahat, you have to identify ano yung mga processes that would be used as your basis for facilities planning. Okay? So an understanding for the overall procedure provides the foundation for the facilities plan. So for the step 1, it involves determination of the operations required for each component. Ano yung mga, yun nga, elemental operations. And then in order to make that determination of what are the operations required for each process, alternative forms of raw materials and types of operations, elemental operations must be considered. Ano-ano yung mga raw materials na gagamitin nyo and ano yung, kumbaga, second choice, ano yung mga options nyo. For example, rather than using wood, you can opt to using other kind of material, like for example, plastic. Okay? So, with that said, magbabago rin po. Kung ano man yung raw materials, magbabago yung ating mga elemental operations. Okay? And then, not perform process selection. And then once you're able to know kung ano yung mga alternative raw materials and then elemental operations, the next one is involving the identification of various mga equipment types na gagamit. How can you perform that elemental operation? So anong klaseng equipment, anong klaseng tool yung gagamitin natin? So may it be manual operations ba yun? Or for example, ay halimbawa ang product ko ay simple lang to. Milk tea, halimbawa yung sealing. Yung pagsisil ba, ang gagamitin ko ba ay manual or automated sealing? So ayan yung mga equipment type na. And then for the third step, so once you're able to determine yung mga pangangailangang steps, anong machineries, anong equipment, anong tools na gagamitin mo, the next one is determination of the unit production times. So kumbaga, gaano kabilis mo mapaprocess yung particular operation na yan. Okay? So kada isang unit, gaano kabilis mo matatapos yung particular process na yun. And also, equipment utilization. How will you utilize yung mga tools natin, yung mga equipment, machineries na gagamitin for that operations. Kasi parang, halimbawa, if you are to, even deciding whether to make the product or produce the product, you have to weigh in, mag-i-invest ba ako ng mga machineries? Okay? Kasi kung hindi ko naman pala magagamit ng fully, kumbaga, or mataas yung utilization ng aking mga equipment, bakit pa ako magpo-produce ng item na yun? Bakit hindi ko na lang bilhin? Okay? So again, it's very important to know how much of the time your equipment is being used. Okay? Then the utilization for that inputs are being used in the step 4. And then for the step 5, it involves economic evaluation of alternative equipment types. Yun nga. Kung hindi naman siya masyadong magagamit, you can opt to using more economical equipment. Okay? And that can be used on the basis for operations. Okay. So the output for the process, dito po sa process selection. So once again, facilities planner will not decide what are the processes needed. Kumbaga tayo ay magdi-design na lamang ng facility is needed to support that operation or those series of steps. But then again, the outputs from the process selection process, or the first one, ano-ano yung mga processes na kailangan ko? Ano yung mga elemental processes? Elemental processes. Second, natingnan din natin ano yung mga raw materials na gagamitin ko. Diba, tinignan natin sa step 1, ano yung mga alternative raw materials. For example, may it be wood, plastic, or kumbaga, for example, plywood, may it be plywood, MDF, or yung mga processed woods natin, so on and so forth. And also, ano yung mga equipment na gagamitin natin. So all these 3 items are the outputs for your process design. Okay? So all of this are also required. How will you produce the product? Okay? Questions so far? Okay. Yeah. Questions po? Okay. So kung napuputol guys, pangit yung connection. So, nevertheless, recorded naman. Also, the output is generally given in the form of yung tinatawag nating route sheet. Okay. So, ano daw po yung route sheet? So, dito sa amin, sa industry, ito ay nakalagay na lang sa system. Pero ito yung mga kailangan in order for us to form a route sheet or to do a route sheet. 1, let's say, ito yung kailangan mong part. Housing. So, kung babalikan natin, halimbawa, itong part na to yung kailangan mo. So, ano daw yung mga inputs na needed mo? 1, component part and number. Let's say part number W001. Okay? And then, ano-ano yung mga elemental operations. Dito guys. Ito yung mga elemental operations. Okay? And then, you can use let's say, a code for those elemental operations. And then, for the equipment, ano yung mga tools na gagamitin mo. Okay? And then, for the unit times, ito yung operations time natin, elemental times. And then, ano yung kailangan mong mga raw materials. Okay? So, ito yung mga kailangan natin in order for us to make a route sheet. So, ano bang itsura ng route sheet? Ganito po ang itsura ng route sheet. So, you have this operations number. So, that, again, it is a form of coding para sa atin. Kung naulit yung process na yun, 10, yung 0104 sa other part number or component part number natin, then ilagay na lang natin 0104. Okay, again, sa industry is more of coding. So, hindi mo sasabihin shape drill cutoff. Alam mo dapat yung operation numbers. Okay? And then yung mga machine types na gagamitin, and then yung mga tools, mga equipment na kailangan. Kung minsan nilalagay dito sa ang department yung gagawa. Pero syempre, kung hindi pa naman natin alam ano yung classification ng mga departments or ano-ano yung mga departments na nasa facilities natin, hindi na muna natin lalagyan. Okay? And then we have the setup time and then operations time. So set up for that for your toolings. 'Di ba? Hindi naman halimbawa, mag-i-start up ka pa lang ng machine, 'di ba? So how long will it take you for that startup, for setting up that machine? And ito po yung operation time. Ito po ay per unit of that component. And also, ano-ano yung mga materials na gagamitin mo. Okay? And then, ayan, the same lang din naman po. So, all of these steps are needed to produce that component. Component 1. Ibig sabihin, guys, again, ito po ay manufacture, not purchased. Kasi pag purchase, o di wala nang route sheet. Kung manufacture po yung inyong product, for example, these items, so ito, kakailanganin ko ng route sheet. Ito, another route sheet. And then ito, halimbawa, another route sheet. Okay? And then, kung ito po ay purchased, so no need for route sheet. Okay? Hindi na kailangan kasi hindi mo naman ima-manufacture. Okay po. Similarly, ito din po. Not make. Ito po ay purchased. So, no need for a route sheet. Okay? So, ayan. So, ito yung example ng route sheet. And also, another way to, this time, sequencing the required processes is by looking on the assembly chart or assembly diagram. So ito pong assembly diagram na ito, halimbawa, ayan, we have the operations, ayan, then yung mga kailangan mong item, mga components mo, ito po yung mga components. And then meron tayong tinatawag na sub-assembly, ito assembly, ito assembly, ito assembly, ito sub-assembly, we have another assembly, another assembly, another assembly, sub-assembly, assembly, and then final assembly. Okay? So, kumbaga, makikita, ito naman, natutunan nyo na naman to sa method study. So, wala namang problema dito on how to create this. But normally, how to create that assembly chart, you have to begin, ayan, with the completed product. Kumbaga, pabalik tayo. Ito yung final product ko or final good ko. Ano-ano yung mga components. Okay, paano ko siya i-assemble? Okay, ano yung mga isa-sub-assemble ko? Ano-ano yung mga components? Okay? So this is an example of assembly chart. Ito for example is for a patty. Hold on po ha. Okay, so going back. So an example is for a burger. So ayan, ito yung mag-start ka dito. Ito yung burger. Burger. Okay, yan, burger. And then, papaano siya i-assemble. So we have the assembly 1 and then the second assembly. For the second assembly, ano yung mga kailangan kong pagsamasamahin? Sesame. And then pickles, onion, so on and so forth. And then ito, may sub-assembly pala gagawin. Pagsasamasamahin ko sina beef patty, salt, and cheese. So you have this sub-assembly. And then dito for the first layer naman po, ganun din. Ayan. Dito, first layer. Ito yung first layer natin. And then you have this one, second layer. Okay? So ayan, pagsasama-samahin ko daw muna to. Mag-assemble. And then, saka ko pagsasama-samahin yung ibang other component parts. Okay? And then, kung mapapansin nyo itong wrapper, sa bandang dulo na siya. Kung kailan hindi mo naman nirap na kaagad, di ba, yung second layer and first layer assembly. Kumbaga, irarap mo lang siya once na natapos mo na yung Big Mac. So, dito na siya sa dulo. And then, normally, pag nasa industry ka, meron tong box. So, if we go back here, anong ibig sabihin ng box na yun or yung ating parang square? Yan po yung ating inspection. Okay? Questions? Wala. Okay, seems wala po. So, yan. Ito po yung sa airflow regulator nating example. Kung mapapansin nyo, ito yung mga part numbers. And then, meron ditong sub-assembly. Pagsasama-samahin ko po ito. Yung mga parts na yan. And then, sasama ko na yung body sa na-assembled na part. Okay. After nun, ilalak ko. Then, pupunta siya doon. Then, ilalagay ko yung pipe plug. May assembly. And then, may gagawin muna akong inspection. And then, yung packaging material. Once na cleared na lahat, nakapasa na sa quality, then ipapackage ko na. And then, that A4, yun po yung ating final assembly. And yung final output natin is yun nga, airflow regulator. Ngayon, in sequencing the required processes, it does not provide, the assembly chart does not provide the overall understanding of the flow. Diba? Para kasing dito, pinakita lang sa atin, ano yung, paano ko i-assemble? Kaya nga po, assembly chart. Diba? Paano ko i-assemble yung mga component parts ko? Ano-ano yung mga pagsasama-samahin kong component parts? Ano yung sub-assembly nila? Paano ko idudugtong yung sub-assembly to other components or to other sub-assemblies? Okay? Pero hindi siya nagbibigay sa atin ng flow. Flow, di ba ang flow, napakahalaga niya sa facilities. Kasi ito yung tinitingnan natin. Ano ba yung first step? Ano yung second? Ano yung third? Pasaan ba siya? Papaganda ba? Saang banda pupunta dun sa facilities mo? Okay? Ngayon, how can we address that flow? By superimposing the route sheets on the assembly chart, understanding yung kada step ng na i-undergo ng kada component parts dun sa ating assembly chart, we can then obtain the overview of the flow in what they call as operations process chart. Okay, ano daw itsura ng operations process chart? So kung napapansin nyo ito, for, di ba, pag assembly lang sa atin, hindi, ito kasi mga steps found in route sheet. Di ba, kung babalikan natin guys yung route sheet natin, ito siya. Okay? So, tingnan natin mamaya dito kay plunger housing, which is a component part. Okay. And then, ito nga yung ating parts or component parts, and then may nangyayaring assembly, sub-assembly, so on and so forth. Ayan. So, this is an example sa ating airflow regulator. Asan si plunger? Ito si plunger. And then, kung mapapansin nyo, ito yung mga process nila. O1, O1, O3, mill, shape, cut off and inspect. Tingnan natin, nasan siya. Ayan, O1, ito na lang, O1, O4 yung gamitin natin. Housing pala po ito, housing. So, sala po tayo ng tinignan. Yung O1, O4, ito siya. Ito pala yun. So, kung mapapansin nyo, ito yung part number, ito yung coding in the route sheet. Okay? And then, anong sunod na step? 02, 04. Tingnan natin ulit. Ayun, 0204. Then 0304, 0404, then sub-assembly. Okay, tingnan natin. Oops. Ayan, 0204, 0304, and then there you have it, the sub-assembly. Okay? So, ganyan po yung ating operations process chart. Kasi ang alam nating operations process chart ay yung parang ganito. Yung naka-table siya and then may bilog, may ganyan. May triangle yatang pabaliktad, may transfer, and then may delay, and then ganyan. Okay, hindi po. Ganito po yung operations process chart. Okay? Okay. So, naintindihan ba natin to, guys? So, ito naman po ay kapareho lang din ng assembly process chart. Yun nga lang, naka-label dito. Ano-ano yung mga operations. Okay? Ano-ano yung mga process. Kumbaga, it's like, so, it is like an assembly chart plus the route sheet. Okay? Yun po yung ating operations process chart. Okay. So, now, how will we sequence the required processes? Alam na natin ngayon yung flow. So, alam na natin, nakapag-construct na tayo ng process OPC, operations process chart. Ayan, paano ba siya gawin? So, normally, we are beginning it dun sa upper right side of the chart with the components included in the first assembly operations. So, dito tayo nagsisimula sa first. Okay, ito po yung first step natin. The second step, if the components are purchased, that should be shown as feeding vertically. Feeding vertically. In appropriate operations. Tignan natin ulit. Ayan, ito siya. Spring, o-ring. Ang mga yan po ay mga purchased. Feeding vertically. Okay? So, itong plunger. Pag isasama natin yung spring, isasama natin si o-ring, isasama natin si o-ring. Okay? Papareho lang din naman po. And then, lahat ng ito, guys, yan po yung mga make natin or ipoproduce nating components. And lastly, the operations process chart may be completed by continuing this manner through all required steps until the product is ready for release in the warehouse hanggang sa matapos na siya dito. Okay? So, ito po, purchase. Ito din is a purchase. Okay? And then ito, lahat ng yan ay mga make items natin. Ito, lahat ng ito ay mga make items. And then ito yung nakikita natin sa route sheet. Okay. Now, a second viewpoint based on the graph and network theory is to interpret the chart as network presentations. So, kumbaga, alam na natin yung mga flow. Di ba? Alam na natin lahat ng mga processes. But the question is, which of those processes need to come first? Anong uunahin ko? Kasi kung minsan, halimbawa, may isang process doon na parehong na yung machine ay gagamitin for producing those two different component parts. Anong uunahin kong process? Anong uunahin kong component part? Okay? So, we're using here what they call as precedence diagram. It's directed network and is often used in the network operations, network presentations, and sequencing. Okay. So, ano daw ang meron dito sa precedence diagram? Ito guys ay parang kung natatandaan nyo sa project management, that's what they call as PERT, PERT CPM. Okay. So, that shows one is yung mga part numbers on the arcs or nasa lines natin. And then it also denotes the operations and yung inspection natin. And inspection. Kumbaga, ang operations ay yung bilog and also inspection ay yung square. Ano yung itsura ngayon guys nitong precedence diagram? Ganito. So, napapansin nyo guys, ito yung ating there's one component. This is a component. And then this one is hold on, mali pala. Ito yung component natin. Nasa arc nga pala yun. Sorry. This is the operations. Yung operation na ito, ayan, ito po yung uunahin nating process. Okay? So kung babalikan natin, ano nga yun? 01. 01, ito ba yun? Okay, ito yun. 4150. Sorry, ito. 3254. Itong 3254, ito yung ating plunger. That is housing. Plunger housing. So that plunger housing has to undergo, again, that's your part number, that has to undergo 0104. Anong 0104 natin? Titingnan ko ulit dito sa ating route sheet. Ayan no, 0104 shape drill cut. Ilagay lang natin dito ha, ito for label lang. Cut, drill, and then, nakalimutan ko yung shape, drill, and cut. Sorry, it's shape, drill, and then cut. Then kung mapapansin nyo to guys, okay lang pala po, yung dalawang yun ay naka-simultaneous. Ibig sabihin, pwedeng hindi siya sequence. Pwede natin i-perform yung dalawang activities na yun, which are, babalikan natin sa route sheet, itong machine slot and trend at saka drill ay pwede natin gawing ng sabay. Besides, magkaibang machine din naman yung ating magagamit. Okay? So, ayan. And then, we have the 04, 04, and then assembly. So, as much as possible, ito po. At saka yung ating mga naunang gagawin, which are operations process chart, and then, itong assembly chart ay dapat mag-fit. Okay? Ayan. And then, nandito yung inspection and then assembly for. Okay. So, tingnan natin yung another example dito. Ayan. 3250. C3. Asan si 3250? Ito po. C3. Okay. Mag-undergo siya ng process na 0102. Balikan natin. Okay. Hindi kasi dapat may kanya siyang route sheet dito. May kanya-kanya yung route sheet. Depende kung ilang component parts yung gagawin mo or ima-manufacture mo. But then it will undergo 0102 process, which is shape, drill, and cut off. And then inspect. Similarly, dito po sa iba, ganun din po. And then ito po yung mga purchase natin. Kung mapapansin nyo, purchase siya if walang node. Kumbaga, walang nakabilog. Ito po, mga purchase din. Okay? Question. Question po. Question, guys. Okay. So what you have to do next is this one. One, maglalagay tayo syempre ng parts list. I-update lang natin to kung ano yung sinend mo. Then the second one, bill of material. The third is route sheet for each component. Halimbawa po may tatlong kang components, then tatlong route sheet yung kailangan mong gawin. Or sabihin natin 10 make components that should be equal to 10 route sheet. Okay? So, kanya-kanya po yan. Hindi po natin. So, yung process time, for the process time, you can just estimate. Kumbaga, babalikan natin. Ito yung route sheet natin. Itong setup and then operations time. For now, it can be estimated. Okay? So, kumbaga, pero kung may existing product na kayo, alam nyo yung process niya, besides gagamitin niya naman to sa feasibility study, then maganda na kung ilagay natin yung saktong oras. Yun na measure nyo habang pinagagawa niyo yung product niya. Okay? Then go back here. So you have here the route sheet. After that, you'll create an assembly diagram or assembly chart. Magkaka-relate po to dapat. And then we have the process chart. Okay, we have the route sheet, assembly chart. Okay, sorry, na ano pa, operations process. Lagyan ko lang dito ng operations. Okay, so you have the operations process chart. Ganito yung itsura, halos kapareho lang din naman po ng assembly kaso may details po for the process. Okay, like this one. And lastly is precedence. Ayan. So may precedence chart na kaya. Yun yung next. Or precedence diagram. Okay. So ito medyo matrabaho to kasi may susunod pa tayo dito about schedule design before we proceed dun sa ating facilities design. Ngayon guys, just to give you sample, ito nakita ko lang sa internet. Then you may search for several samples naman. But then, nasan ba yun? Ito yata. Ito nakita ko lang to sa internet. This is a facility planning for a pen. So kung mapapansin nyo, ganito rin yung gagawin natin. Ayan. So they have the view, product design, meron silang exploded diagram. And then ito yung parts list nila, may it be buy or make. Kaya lang din ang ginagawa natin. Then meron silang bill of materials, ngayon naka-product restructure sila, and then they have the assembly chart. After nun, meron silang operations process chart, kagaya nito. Ang kulang lang nila ay wala silang route sheet. Pero tayo po, magagawa tayo ng route sheet. Madali lang din naman yun eh. Yun nga lang, ang mahirap din is yung identifying yung steps, process on how to make that component. And then, ayan, wala rin sila ditong precedence diagram. Okay, but then ito yung ating magiging goal. Okay? Questions? So, yun nga po, balikan natin tong assign task for HW4. Indented, kahit hindi na po indented bill of materials, kahit parts list lang, okay na yun. Operations process chart. Sorry. For the operations process chart, route sheet, SMD, siguro i-revise ko na lang tong instruction just to make it simple. Okay, then ito, isasolve natin. Okay? Questions? So, yung due date nito, edit ko lang, is on 1 week tayo. Kaya sabi ko sa inyo guys, as much as possible na aayos nyo yung pag-submit nyo kasi maiipunan. Okay, questions guys before we wrap things up. Questions? Questions po?
Wala po, sir.
Okay, so medyo matrabaho tayo, maraming gagawin. So maybe on Saturday we'll just have a recap. Ano, hindi tayo magdi-discuss, pag-uusapan lang natin yung progreso ng mga ginagawa niya. Okay? Questions po? Any more questions? So again, ito po ay ibibigay ko na lang or update ko yung link dito. Process update ko na lang with my notes. Okay? So walang questions ha? Good? We're good so far? Okay, so since good na tayo, okay, so I think that's pretty much it for today, guys. So, salamat po and have a great day. Paalam po.
Thank you po, sir. Thank you po, sir.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Ayaw niyang okay, stop presenting. Then,